In the mystical realm of Kumandra, where ancient civilizations once thrived in harmony with magnificent dragons, a tale of trust, betrayal, and redemption unfolds that would captivate audiences worldwide. Raya and the Last Dragon stands as Disney's ambitious animated feature that premiered in the year following the global pandemic, bringing with it themes of unity and cooperation that resonated deeply with viewers, seeking hope during. The story begins in a world that was once whole, a land called Kumandra, where humans and dragons lived side by side in perfect harmony. These were not the fearsome beasts of Western folklore, but benevolent creatures who brought rain, prosperity, and peace to the land. The dragons were guardians and protectors, their very presence ensuring that the realm flourished with abundant water, fertile soil, and communities that worked together for the common good. But this paradise was not destined to last forever. From the shadows emerged an evil known as the Druun, sinister spirits that move like dark fog across the landscape, turning everything they touched into stone. These malevolent entities spread like a plague, consuming the life force of both humans and dragons alike, leaving behind only cold, lifeless statues where vibrant beings once stood. The dragons, faced with this existential threat to all life in Kumandra, made the ultimate sacrifice. They pooled their collective magic, their very essence, into a single powerful orb known as the Dragon Gem. This mystical artifact contained the concentrated power of all dragonkind, a beacon of light capable of banishing the darkness that threatened to consume their world. The last dragon to wield this power was Sisu, who channeled the magic of her siblings to create a massive shockwave that drove the Druun away and restored the petrified humans to life. However, this victory came at a tremendous cost. While the humans were saved, the dragons themselves remained as stone, their sacrifice permanent and irreversible. Only Sisu survived, but in the aftermath of the great battle, she too vanished, leaving behind only legends and the precious dragon gem that had saved the world. In the centuries that followed, the unity that had once defined Kumandra began to crumble. Without the dragons to guide them, and with fear of the Druun's return constantly looming, the people began to distrust one another. They divided into tribes, each claiming sovereignty over different regions of what had once been a unified kingdom. These tribes took their names from the parts of a great dragon, as if trying to maintain some connection to their lost protectors. There was Heart, the central tribe that had become the guardians of the dragon gem itself. To the north lay Spine, a mountainous region where warriors trained in harsh conditions. In the desert wastes stood Tail, where resourceful people learned to survive in the harshest environments. The floating markets and port cities became known as Talon, where traders and merchants plied their crafts. And finally, there was Fang, the most militaristic of the tribes, always seeking to expand their power and influence. Each tribe hoarded their resources, built walls both literal and metaphorical, and viewed the others with suspicion. What had once been a single, thriving civilization became a collection of isolated communities, each convinced that they alone could be trusted with the responsibility of protecting their people from future threats. It is into this fractured world that we are introduced to Chief Benja of the Heart Tribe, a man who still believed in the old ways, who remembered the stories of unity and cooperation that had once made Kumandra great. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Benja refused to accept that division was the natural state of their world. He dreamed of reuniting the tribes, of rebuilding the trust that had been lost, and of creating a Kumandra that would be even stronger than before. Chief Benja was not alone in his quest for unity. He had a daughter, Raya, who had been trained from childhood to be both a guardian of the Dragon Gem and a bridge between the divided peoples of their world. Raya was no ordinary princess locked away in a tower, but a skilled warrior who had mastered the ancient martial arts that had been passed down through generations of Heart Tribe guardians. The training sequences that established Raya's character showcased not just her physical prowess, but also her deep understanding of her father's vision for a reunited Kumandra. She moved with the fluid grace of a master martial artist, her weapon of choice being a segmented sword that could transform from a staff to a whip to a blade depending on the situation. This versatility in combat reflected the adaptability that would serve her well in the trials to come. The design of Raya's weapon was particularly noteworthy, drawing inspiration from Southeast Asian martial arts tradition. The animators and designers spent considerable time researching authentic fighting styles from Indonesia, Malaysia, and other regions, ensuring that every movement and technique had roots in real martial arts practices. This attention to detail extended to the choreography of fight scenes, which featured the flowing, acrobatic movements of pencak silat and other traditional fighting forms. The world building in Raya and the Last Dragon represents one of Disney's most ambitious attempts to create a fantasy realm that draws from real-world cultures while remaining distinctly fantastical. The landscapes of Kumandra were inspired by the diverse geography of Southeast Asia. From the terraced rice fields of Vietnam to the floating markets of Thailand, from the ancient temples of Cambodia to the volcanic landscapes of Indonesia. Each of the tribal regions had its own distinct visual identity that reflected both the environment and the culture of its people. Heart, as the central tribe, featured architecture reminiscent of Angkor Wat, with massive stone temples and intricate carvings that spoke to an ancient and sophisticated civilization. The geometric patterns and stepped pyramids created a sense of both grandeur and spirituality that befitted the guardians of the dragon gem. Spine, the northern mountain tribe, drew visual inspiration from the highland cultures of Southeast Asia, with terraced mountainsides and fortress-like structures built into the cliffsides. The harsh, rocky environment had shaped a people who valued strength and endurance, and their architecture reflected this with its emphasis on defensive positions and sturdy construction. Tael, the desert tribe, showcased the ingenuity required to survive in harsh environments. Their settlements featured wind-powered mechanisms and clever water conservation systems, drawing inspiration from both ancient engineering marvels and the resourcefulness. The visual design emphasized earth tones and flowing, organic shapes that seemed to emerge naturally from the landscape. Talon, the floating market tribe, was perhaps the most visually spectacular of the regions, with its networks of boats, bridges, and floating platforms that created entire cities on the water. The design team drew inspiration from the floating markets of Thailand and Vietnam, but expanded the concept to imagine what an entire civilization built on water might look like. The constant motion and vibrant colors of this aquatic metropolis create a sense of energy and commerce that perfectly suited its role as the trading hub of Kumandra. Fang, the militaristic tribe, featured architecture that was both beautiful and imposing. Drawing inspiration from ancient fortresses and palace complexes, Fang's visual design emphasized both luxury and military might. The structures were built for both beauty and defense, with high walls, strategic positions, and an overall sense of power and authority that reflected the tribe's ambitions. The character design in Raya and the Last Dragon represented a significant step forward for Disney in terms of authentic representation. The design team worked closely with the Southeast Asian Story Trust, a group of cultural consultants who helped ensure that the characters, costumes, and cultural elements were portrayed with respect and accuracy. This collaboration was crucial in creating characters that felt authentic without falling into stereotypes or cultural appropriation. Raya herself was designed to be a strong, capable protagonist who could serve as a role model for young viewers, while also representing the diverse backgrounds of Southeast Asian peoples. Her costume design incorporated elements from various traditional dress styles, adapted for the practical needs of a warrior princess. The attention to detail in her clothing, from the intricate patterns to the way fabric moved during action sequences, demonstrated the care taken to create an authentic feeling world. The supporting characters each reflected the diversity of their respective tribes while maintaining their own individual personalities and characteristics. From the weathered warriors of Spine to the clever merchants of Talon, each character felt like they belonged in their specific environment while contributing to the larger tapestry of Kumandran society. As the story proper begins, we find Chief Benja preparing for what he hopes will be a historic moment in the fractured history of Kumandra. After years of planning and careful diplomacy, he has managed to convince the leaders of all the other tribes to come to Heart for a great feast, a gathering that he hopes will be the first step toward reunifying their divided world. The preparation for this feast is handled with great ceremony and significance. This is not merely a political meeting, but a cultural event of tremendous importance. The Heart tribe prepares traditional foods, decorates a great hall with symbols of unity, and Chief Benja himself dons ceremonial robes that speak to the gravity of the occasion. For him, this feast represents the culmination of years of work, the moment when his dream of a reunited Kumandra might finally begin to become reality. She has been trained not just as a warrior, but as a diplomat, someone who can speak to people from different tribes and find common ground. Her role in the feast is not just ceremonial but practical, as she will need to interact with the children and young people from the other tribes, hopefully building the foundations of trust that will be necessary for any lasting peace. The arrival of the other tribal delegations is depicted with great pomp and circumstance. Each group brings their own retinues, their own cultural traditions, and their own expectations for what this gathering might accomplish. The diversity of dress, customs, and mannerisms serves to highlight just how far apart the tribes have grown over the centuries of separation. Among the visiting delegations is Chief Virana of the Fang tribe, accompanied by her daughter Namari. From the moment they appear on screen, it is clear that Fang is different from the other tribes. Their delegation is larger, more military in bearing, and their leader carries herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to power and command. Chief Virana is a complex character, neither purely antagonistic nor completely sympathetic, but rather a leader who genuinely believes that strength and military might are the keys to protecting her people. Namari, roughly the same age as Raya, presents an interesting counterpoint to our protagonist. Where Raya has been raised with ideals of unity and cooperation, Namari has been taught that strength and vigilance are the only reliable protections against a dangerous world. She is not evil, but rather the product of a different philosophy, one that sees trust as a luxury that only the naive can afford. The initial interactions between Raya and Namari are carefully crafted to show both the possibilities and the perils of the situation. The two young women are natural equals in many ways, both skilled fighters, both intelligent and capable, both carrying the weight of their respective tribes' expectations. Their conversations reveal shared interests and common ground, suggesting that perhaps the younger generation might succeed where their parents have failed. The cultural exchange during the feast showcases the rich traditions that each tribe has developed during their centuries of separation. Music, dance, storytelling, and culinary traditions are all on display, creating a vibrant tapestry that reminds everyone present of what they share in common even as it highlights their differences. These scenes serve multiple purposes in the narrative, establishing the richness of Kumandran culture while also building tension toward the dramatic events that will follow. The centerpiece of the gathering is Chief Benja's proposal for reunification. In a speech that draws upon the ancient legends and shared history of all the tribes, he argues that their division has made them weaker, not stronger. He speaks of the dragons who sacrificed themselves for all of Kumandra, not just for one tribe or another. He reminds his audience of the prosperity and peace that their ancestors enjoyed when they worked together rather than in opposition. The dragon gem itself plays a central role in this diplomatic effort. Benja reveals the artifact to the assembled leaders, demonstrating its power and explaining how it has protected Heart while leaving them willing to share its benefits with a reunited Kumandra. The gem is depicted as a thing of incredible beauty, a crystalline artifact that seems to contain the very essence of dragon magic within its faceted surface. The artistic representation of the dragon gem is particularly noteworthy, combining traditional crystalline geometry with mystical energy effects that make it seem truly magical. The way light plays across its surface, the subtle movements of energy within its structure, and the sense of contained power all contribute to making it feel like a genuine artifact of great significance, rather than simply a plot device. However, even as hope for reunification seems within reach, the underlying tensions between the tribes continue to simmer beneath the surface. Years of mistrust cannot be overcome by a single feast, no matter how well-intentioned. Some tribal leaders remain skeptical of Benja's motives, wondering if this is simply an elaborate ploy to gain advantage over the other tribes. Others worry about what concessions they might be expected to make in exchange for access to the dragon gem's protection. It is into this environment of cautious optimism, mixed with deep suspicion, that Raya and Namari begin to form their fateful friendship. The two young women, perhaps because of their youth, or perhaps because they have not yet fully absorbed all of their tribe's prejudices, find themselves genuinely enjoying each other's company. They share stories, discuss their training, and discover that they have more in common than either had expected. The gift of the dragon pendant from Namari to Raya represents a pivotal moment in both their relationship and the larger story. This small token, shaped like a dragon, and clearly of great personal significance to Namaari, represents more than just a friendly gesture. It is a symbol of trust, a bridge between their two tribes, and a sign that perhaps the next generation might succeed where their parents' generation has struggled. The pendant becomes a tangible reminder of what is possible when people approach each other with open hearts and minds. The decision to show Namaari the Dragon Gem Chamber represents both the climax of Raya's trust and the beginning of the tragedy that will reshape their world. In the sacred space where the gem has been protected for centuries, surrounded by the ancient carvings and artifacts of her ancestors, Raya makes a choice to trust completely. She reveals not just the location of the gem, but also the methods used to protect it, essentially making herself and her tribe completely vulnerable to her new friend. The chamber itself is depicted as a marvel of both engineering and artistry. Ancient mechanisms designed by the original guardians of the gem create multiple layers of protection, from physical barriers to mystical wards. The architecture speaks to the reverence with which previous generations treated their sacred charge, with every surface covered in carvings that tell the story of the dragon's sacrifice and the gem's creation. What happens next represents one of the most heartbreaking betrayals in Disney animation history. Namaari's decision to signal her tribe's warriors is not portrayed as simple villainy, but rather as the tragic result of conflicting loyalties and irreconcilable worldviews. She genuinely likes Raya and has been moved by Chief Benja's vision of unity, but she has also been raised to believe that her first loyalty must always be to the safety and security of her own people. The arrival of Fang warriors in the Gem Chamber represents the shattering of more than just political hopes. It is the destruction of trust itself, the moment when the possibility of peaceful reunification dies and is replaced by conflict and competition. The carefully orchestrated plan to steal the gem while the other tribal leaders are distracted by the feast demonstrates the level of calculation that has gone into this betrayal, but the situation spirals far beyond what anyone had intended. The arrival of Fang warriors alerts the other tribes to what is happening, and what was meant to be a surgical operation to acquire the gem becomes a chaotic free-for-all as every tribal delegation attempts to claim the artifact for themselves. The Great Hall becomes a battlefield as centuries of suppressed tensions and rivalries explode into open conflict. The breaking of the Dragon Gem represents both the climax of this opening sequence and the inciting incident for everything that follows. As tribal warriors fight over the artifact, pulling it in different directions and striking it with weapons, the gem that has protected Kumandra for centuries finally succumbs to the violence and shatters into pieces. The moment of its destruction is depicted with devastating impact, the crystalline artifact exploding into fragments that scatter across the chamber. With the gem's destruction comes the immediate return of the Druun. The ancient evil that has been held at bay for generations suddenly pours back into the world like a dark tide, moving with terrifying speed to consume everything in its path. The contrast between the colorful, vibrant world of the feast and the gray, lifeless advance of the Druun creates a powerful visual metaphor for the consequences of division and mistrust. The escape sequence that follows showcases both the immediate horror of the Druun's return and the chaos that results from the complete breakdown of cooperation between the tribes. Each tribal delegation grabs whatever pieces of the shattered gem they can find and flees back to their own territories, abandoning any pretense of working together to face the common threat. The every tribe for itself mentality that emerges in this moment of crisis demonstrates just how fragile the bonds of potential unity really were. Chief Benja's sacrifice to save his daughter represents both a personal tragedy and a symbolic moment that will drive the rest of the narrative. As the Druun close in on Raya, her father makes the ultimate choice that any parent might make, throwing himself between his child and danger. His final moments, as he pushes Raya to safety while being consumed by the Druun, establish the emotional stakes that will motivate her quest for the remainder of the film. The image of Chief Benja being turned to stone while reaching out toward his daughter creates one of the most powerful and heartbreaking moments in the entire film. The animators capture not just the physical transformation, but also the emotional weight of the moment, the desperate love of a parent trying to save his child even as his own life slips away. This moment establishes the personal motivation that will drive Raya through all the trials and challenges that lie ahead. The aftermath of these tragic events is depicted through a montage that shows the transformation of Kumandra from a land on the verge of reunification to a world more divided than ever before. Each tribe retreats to its own territory, with its fragment of the dragon gem, using the artifact's remaining power to create small zones of safety, while the Druun roam freely across the wastelands between tribal boundaries. The visual design of this post-catastrophe world emphasizes the cost of division and mistrust. Where once there were roads connecting the different regions of Kumandra, now there are only dangerous wastelands patrolled by the Druun. The vibrant, living landscapes of the opening scenes are replaced by gray, dead zones where nothing can survive. Dead zones where nothing can survive. The contrast serves as a powerful reminder of what has been lost and what is at stake in the quest to repair the damage. Raya's transformation during this period is handled with considerable depth and nuance. The young woman who emerges from these tragic events is harder, more suspicious, and far less trusting than the idealistic princess who began the story. 6 years of living in a world where cooperation has failed and where trust led to betrayal have shaped her into a formidable but isolated warrior. The design of adult Raya reflects this character development in subtle but important ways. Her clothing is more practical and battle-tested, her weapons show signs of frequent use, and her bearing suggests someone who has learned to rely only on herself. The carefree energy of her youth has been replaced by the focused determination of someone with a singular mission, but the underlying nobility and strength of character that defined her as a child remain intact. Raya's quest to find Sisu, the last dragon, represents both a practical mission and a spiritual journey. On the practical level, she believes that finding Sisu is the key to reassembling the dragon gem and reversing the damage that has been done to their world. On the spiritual level, her search represents a refusal to give up hope, a determination to believe that the unity and cooperation her father dreamed of are still possible. The search itself takes Raya across all of Kumandra, through the territories of each tribe and into the dangerous wastelands between them. This journey serves as both character development and world building, showing audiences the full scope of the damage that has been done, while also demonstrating Raya's growth as a warrior and survivor. Each region she visits tells its own story of how the different tribes have adapted to their new reality. The discovery of Sisu at the ancient shipwreck in Tail territory represents the first major turning point in Raya's quest. The location itself is significant. A massive ship that has been stranded in what is now desert but was once a thriving waterway. The ship serves as a metaphor for Kumandra itself, something that was once magnificent and functional, but has been left high and dry by changing circumstances. The summoning ritual that awakens Sisu combines elements of traditional magic with deeply personal faith. Raya's words, as she calls upon the last dragon, are not just incantations but heartfelt pleas that reveal both her desperation and her determination. When Sisu finally appears, rising from the tiny spring that is all that remains of the region's once abundant water, the moment feels both mystical and deeply emotional. Sisu herself represents one of the most unique and memorable characters in recent Disney animation. Voiced with infectious enthusiasm and humor by Awkwafina, Sisu brings a completely different energy to the story than the serious, driven Raya, where Raya has become focused and suspicious through her experiences. Sisu retains an almost childlike wonder and optimism that seems almost absurd given the state of their world. The character design of Sisu draws inspiration from traditional Southeast Asian dragon mythology, while maintaining a distinctly Disney sensibility. Unlike the fearsome, serpentine dragons of European folklore, Sisu is clearly a benevolent creature, with flowing, graceful lines, and a design that emphasizes her connection to water and life rather than destruction and hoarding. Her ability to transform between dragon and human form adds both practical plot utility and visual interest to her character. The relationship that develops between Raya and Sisu forms the emotional core of the film's middle section. These two characters, coming from completely different backgrounds and experiences, must learn to work together despite their very different approaches to problem solving. Raya's tendency towards suspicion and self-reliance clashes with Sisu's instinctive trust and belief in the goodness of others, creating both conflict and growth opportunities for both characters. Sisu's revelation that she did not actually create the dragon gem but merely wielded it on behalf of her siblings adds both complexity to the mythology and depth to her character. This disclosure transforms her from an all-powerful magical being into someone who succeeded through cooperation and trust, perfectly embodying the themes that the film seeks to explore. Her siblings' sacrifice and their trust in her ability to do the right thing with their combined power provide a model for the kind of cooperation that Kumandra needs to heal. The quest to retrieve the scattered pieces of the dragon gem provides the structure for much of the film's middle section, while also serving as a vehicle for character development and world building. Each piece of the gem that they recover not only brings them closer to their goal, but also grants Sisu additional magical abilities, creating a sense of progression and growing power that helps maintain momentum throughout the story. The first piece they recover, from tail territory, grants Sisu the ability to shape-shift into human form. This transformation serves both practical and thematic purposes in the story. Practically, it allows Sisu to travel with Raya without immediately revealing her identity as a dragon, which could complicate their mission. Thematically, it represents the idea of adaptation and compromise, the willingness to change oneself in service of a greater goal. The journey through tail territory introduces audiences to Baun, a young entrepreneur who has built a successful restaurant business despite the challenging circumstances of their fractured world. Baun represents the resilience and adaptability of ordinary people who continue to build meaningful lives. His boat-based restaurant serves travelers from all tribes, making him a living example of the cooperation that Raya and Sisu are trying to restore. Baun's character design and personality reflect the maritime culture of tail territory, while also showcasing the ingenuity required to survive in a world where traditional support systems have broken down. His floating restaurant, with its clever construction and welcoming atmosphere, represents hope and normalcy in a world that has too little of either. His immediate willingness to help Raya and Sisu, despite not knowing them well, demonstrates the kind of trust and cooperation that the film celebrates. The transition from tail to talon territory showcases the diversity of environments and cultures within Kumandra, while also advancing the plot and developing the relationships between the main characters. Talon, with its floating markets and vibrant trading culture, represents one of the few places in post-Gem Kumandra where members of different tribes still interact on a regular basis, albeit under careful and limited circumstances. The introduction of little Onoi and her team of Ongias in Talon adds both humor and heart to the story while also exploring themes of family and belonging. Despite being just a baby, Noe has become an accomplished con artist, working with her 3 Ongia companions to survive in a world that offers few protections for orphans and refugees. Her story represents the countless individuals who have been displaced and traumatized by the events that shattered Kumandra. The Ongias themselves, small monkey-like creatures with expressive faces and mischievous personalities, provide comic relief while also serving as symbols of loyalty and family bonds. Their devotion to Noai, despite the obvious challenges of their lifestyle, demonstrates the kind of unconditional love and support that can exist even in the most difficult circumstances. Their presence also adds an element of whimsy and charm that helps balance the more serious themes of the story. The heist sequence in Talon, where Noe and the Ongias attempt to steal from Raya's group, showcases the creative action choreography that characterizes much of the film while also advancing character development. The elaborate con game that Noe orchestrates demonstrates intelligence and planning that seem remarkable for someone so young, while also highlighting the desperate circumstances that have forced her to develop these survival skills. The eventual recruitment of Noe and the Ongias into Raya's group represents another step in the formation of the makeshift family that will ultimately save Kumandra. Each new member brings their own skills, perspectives, and emotional needs to the group, creating a diverse ensemble that reflects the broader diversity of Kumandran society. The growing size of their group also serves as a metaphor for the gradual rebuilding of trust and cooperation that is necessary for healing their divided world. The journey to Spine territory marks another major milestone in both the quest and the character development of the main characters. Spine, with its harsh mountain environment and warrior culture, represents one of the most challenging regions of Kumandra to navigate, both physically and diplomatically. The people of Spine have been shaped by their harsh environment into tough, self-reliant survivors who are suspicious of outsiders and slow to trust. The discovery that Spine has been almost completely consumed by the Druun serves as a sobering reminder of the stakes involved in their mission. The few survivors who remain have been driven to increasingly desperate measures to protect themselves, creating an atmosphere of paranoia and isolation that makes cooperation difficult. The visual design of Spine territory emphasizes the bleakness and desperation with gray, lifeless landscapes and abandoned structures that speak to the toll the Druun have taken. Tong, the last surviving warrior of Spine, represents both the strength and the tragedy of his people. His massive size and formidable fighting skills make him a valuable ally. But his deep grief over the loss of his family and tribe creates emotional barriers that must be overcome before he can truly join their cause. His character design emphasizes both his physical power and his emotional vulnerability, creating a complex figure who embodies the themes of loss and healing that run throughout the film. The revelation of Tong's backstory, including the loss of his family to the Druun, adds emotional weight to the stakes of their mission, while also providing another example of how the division of Kumandra has affected ordinary people. His initial reluctance to trust or cooperate with others reflects the defensive mechanisms that many survivors have developed, but his eventual integration into the group demonstrates the possibility of healing and moving forward. The growing tension between Raya and Sisu over how to approach their mission comes to a head during their time in Spine territory. Sisu's continued advocacy for trust and cooperation clashes with Raya's hard-earned caution and strategic thinking, creating conflict that forces both characters to examine their assumptions and approaches. This tension reflects larger themes about the balance between idealism and pragmatism, between hope and caution. The approach to Fang territory represents the most challenging phase of their quest, both strategically and emotionally. For Raya, returning to Fang means confronting Namari and the betrayal that started their world's descent into chaos. For Sisu, it represents a test of her philosophy of trust and cooperation, as she advocates for approaching Namari as a potential ally rather than simply an enemy to be defeated. Fang territory itself is depicted as the most militarized and organized of the tribal regions, with impressive fortifications and a strong military presence that reflects their focus on strength and security. The architecture combines beauty with defensibility, creating structures that are both aesthetically pleasing and strategically positioned. The visual design emphasizes the pride and power of the Fang tribe, while also suggesting the isolation that comes with their militaristic approach. The internal conflict within Raya's group about how to approach the final phase of their mission reflects broader themes about different approaches to conflict resolution. Some members favor stealth and theft, arguing that Fang cannot be trusted and that taking what they need by force is the only. Others, led by Sisu, advocate for diplomacy and cooperation, believing that Namari might be willing to help if approached with respect and honesty. The decision to attempt diplomacy rather than theft represents a crucial character development moment for Raya, as she chooses to trust Sisu's judgment despite her own instincts and experiences. This choice requires her to set aside years of carefully cultivated suspicion and to make herself vulnerable in a way that goes against everything she has learned about survival in their fractured world. The meeting between Raya and Namari in Fang territory brings together the two characters whose relationship has defined much of the story's emotional arc. Both have changed significantly since their childhood encounter, shaped by years of responsibility and the weight of their tribe's expectations. The conversation between them reveals both the lingering hurt from their past and the genuine respect they still feel for each other. Namari's internal conflict becomes evident during this encounter, as she struggles between her loyalty to her tribe and her growing understanding of the larger picture. Her position as heir to Fang's leadership has given her access to information and perspectives that complicate simple tribal loyalty, while her memories of Chief Benja's vision of unity continue to influence her thinking despite years of military training and political indoctrination. The series of misunderstandings, miscommunications, and split-second decisions that lead to Sisu's death demonstrate how quickly hope can turn to tragedy when trust is fragile and fear is strong. The moment when Raya's defensive instincts cause her to strike at Namari's crossbow, accidentally triggering the bolt that kills Sisu, serves as a powerful reminder of how the cycle of mistrust and violence perpetuates itself. Sisu's death scene is handled with remarkable emotional depth and visual poetry. The moment when the crossbow bolt strikes her and she begins to fade away is depicted with a combination of beautiful animation and heartbreaking voice acting that makes the loss feel genuine and devastating. Her final words, emphasizing the importance of trust and unity even as she dies, provide both closure for her character and guidance for those who survive her. On the practical level, the loss of the last dragon causes all water to drain away from Kumandra, removing the natural barrier that has been keeping the Druun at bay. On the symbolic level, her death represents the apparent failure of the philosophy of trust and cooperation that she embodied, seemingly proving that Raya's suspicion and caution were justified all along. The draining of the water creates some of the most visually striking and ominous sequences in the film. As rivers dry up, lakes disappear, and the Druun begin their advance across previously protected territories. The rapid pace of this environmental collapse creates a sense of urgency that drives the final act of the story, while also serving as a metaphor for how quickly hope can turn to despair when cooperation breaks down. The pursuit sequence between Raya and Namari through the collapsing Fang territory showcases both the impressive action choreography of the film and the emotional intensity of their confrontation. Both characters are driven by grief, anger, and guilt, creating a volatile mix of emotions that fuels their conflict, while also highlighting the personal stakes that underlie their larger political disagreement. The discovery that Namari's mother, Chief Virana, has been turned to stone by the advancing Druun adds another layer of tragedy to the situation, while also forcing Namari to confront the consequences of her choices. The image of the powerful Fang leader reduced to a lifeless statue serves as a stark reminder that no amount of military might can protect against the consequences of division and mistrust. The final battle between Raya and Namari is choreographed not just as a physical confrontation, but as an emotional catharsis for both characters. Their fight serves as a release for years of accumulated anger, guilt, and frustration, while also forcing them to confront the real source of their conflict. The setting, amid the chaos of evacuating civilians and advancing Druun, emphasizes that their personal conflict is taking place against the backdrop of a much larger catastrophe. The moment when Raya realizes that her inability to trust others contributed to Sisu's death represents the crucial turning point in her character development. This recognition forces her to confront the possibility that her approach to their mission, while understandable given her experiences, may have been part of the problem rather than the solution. The internal struggle this creates is depicted with subtle animation and voice acting that makes her emotional journey feel authentic and earned. The decision to trust Namari and work together to save the people of Fang represents the practical application of Sisu's teachings about the power of cooperation and trust. This choice requires both characters to set aside their personal grievances and focus on the larger picture, demonstrating the kind of leadership and maturity that their world desperately needs. The final sequence, where Raya's group must decide whether to trust Namari enough to reassemble the Dragon Gem, serves as the ultimate test of the film's central themes. Each character must make a choice between the safety of holding onto their piece of the gem and the risk of trusting someone who has previously betrayed them. The decision to place their faith in each other despite past disappointments represents the kind of leap of faith that genuine cooperation requires. Raya's choice to be the first to relinquish her piece of the gem and allow herself to be turned to stone by the Druun demonstrates the ultimate act of trust and leadership. By putting herself at risk first, she shows her companions that she genuinely believes in the power of cooperation and that she is willing to sacrifice herself for the greater good. This moment transforms her from a survivor focused on self-preservation into a true leader who inspires others through her example. The sequence where each member of the group follows Raya's example, one by one choosing trust over self-preservation, creates a powerful crescendo that brings together all the themes and character development that have been building throughout the film. Each character's decision reflects their personal growth and the relationships they have formed, while also contributing to the larger message about the power of unity and cooperation. Namari's final act of assembling the gem before allowing herself to be turned to stone represents her complete transformation from antagonist to hero. Her choice to sacrifice herself for the greater good demonstrates that she has fully embraced the vision of unity that Chief Benja represented and that Sisu died defending. This character arc creates a satisfying conclusion to her relationship with Raya, while also embodying the film's themes about redemption and the possibility of change. The magical restoration sequence that follows the gem's reassembly represents both the climactic spectacle of the film and the symbolic healing of Kumandra's divisions. The shockwave of dragon magic that spreads across the land, banishing the Druun and restoring life to the wasteland, serves as a visual metaphor for what becomes possible when people choose cooperation over conflict. The return of water to the land symbolizes the return of life, hope, and prosperity that comes with unity. The resurrection of all those who had been turned to stone, including the dragons themselves, provides an emotionally satisfying conclusion, while also demonstrating the rewards that come with choosing trust over fear. The reunion scenes between characters and their lost loved ones create moments of genuine joy and catharsis that help balance the tragedy and loss that preceded them. Sisu's return from death represents not just the restoration of a beloved character, but also the vindication of her philosophy of trust and cooperation. Her revival serves as proof that the sacrifices made by Raya and the others were worthwhile, and that the principles she represented are indeed powerful enough to overcome even death itself. The final scenes of reunification, showing the various tribes coming together at Heart Territory to celebrate their restored unity, provide a visual representation of Chief Benja's original dream finally coming to fruition. The sight of dragons flying freely through the skies while people from all tribes mingle peacefully below creates a powerful image of what becomes possible when artificial divisions are set aside in favor of cooperation and mutual respect. From a technical standpoint, Raya and the Last Dragon represent some of Disney's most ambitious animation work to date. The film required the development of new techniques for rendering water, hair, and fabric that would meet the exacting standards of modern audiences, while also serving the specific needs of Southeast Asian-inspired character designs and environments. The character animation throughout the film demonstrates remarkable attention to detail and cultural authenticity. The animators worked closely with martial arts experts to ensure that fight scenes looked authentic. The flowing movements of characters' clothing, the subtle expressions that convey complex emotions, and the dynamic action sequences all showcase the technical expertise that has made Disney animation famous worldwide. The environmental design work in the film required extensive research into Southeast Asian geography, architecture, and cultural tradition. The art team traveled to multiple countries in the region, studying everything from ancient temple complexes to modern floating markets to ensure that the world of Kumandra felt authentic and lived in. The attention to detail in background elements, from the patterns on fabrics to the design of everyday objects, helps create a sense of cultural specificity that enriches the viewing experience. The voice acting in Raya and the Last Dragon brings together a predominantly Asian American cast that helps ensure authentic representation while also delivering performances that serve the story's emotional needs. Kelly Marie Tran's performance as Raya captures both the character's strength and vulnerability, conveying the internal journey from suspicion to trust that drives the story. Awkwafina's work as Sisu provides the perfect counterbalance, bringing humor and optimism to balance Raya's seriousness while never undermining the character's wisdom and depth. The supporting voice cast, including Gemma Chan as Namari, Sandra Oh as Virana, and Benedict Wong as Tong, brings depth and authenticity to their roles, while helping to create a world that feels populated by real, complex individuals rather than simple archetypes. Each actor brings their own cultural background and understanding to their performance, helping to create a film that feels respectful of the traditions it draws from while also telling a universal story. The musical score by James Newton Howard provides an epic, emotional foundation that supports both the intimate character moments and the spectacular action sequences. The music draws inspiration from Southeast Asian musical traditions while also incorporating the orchestral grandeur that audiences expect from a Disney animated feature. The way the score weaves together different cultural influences mirrors the film's themes about unity and cooperation, creating a sonic landscape that enhances the visual storytelling. The integration of traditional Southeast Asian instruments into the orchestral score creates a unique sound palette that helps establish the cultural authenticity of the world, while also providing emotional support for key story moments. The use of specific instruments and musical motifs to represent different characters and tribes helps create musical characterization that adds depth to the storytelling without overwhelming the dialogue or action. The film's exploration of themes related to trust, cooperation, and unity resonated particularly strongly with audiences who watched it during a time when many societies were grappling with division and isolation. The message that people are stronger when they work together, and that trust is worth the risk it requires, felt especially relevant to viewers experiencing their own challenges with social and political division. The representation of Southeast Asian cultures in the film was generally well received by both critics and audiences, particularly the effort to avoid stereotypes and to work with cultural consultants throughout the development process. The Southeast Asian Story Trust, which included experts from various countries and cultural backgrounds, helped ensure that the film respected the traditions it drew from while also creating something new and uniquely suited to the medium of Yat. The character of Raya herself has been praised as a strong female protagonist who demonstrates leadership, courage, and growth without falling into common tropes or stereotypes. Her journey from suspicion to trust, from isolation to cooperation, provides a compelling character arc that resonates with viewers of all ages while also serving the larger themes of the story. The film's approach to depicting conflict and reconciliation has been noted for its nuance and complexity. Rather than presenting a simple story of good versus evil, Raya and the Last Dragon explores how fear, mistrust, and past trauma can perpetuate cycles of conflict even among people who fundamentally want the same things. The resolution requires not just defeating external threats, but also overcoming internal barriers to cooperation and understanding. The visual representation of the Druun as a force of division and destruction that can only be defeated through unity serves as an effective metaphor for various real-world challenges that require collective action to address. Whether interpreted as representing environmental threats, social division, or other collective challenges, the Druun provide a compelling antagonist that can only be defeated through the kind of cooperation that the film celebrates. The success of Raya and the Last Dragon has been measured not just in box office returns, but also in its cultural impact and the conversations it has generated about representation, cooperation, and the importance of diverse storytelling in mainstream entertainment. The film has been credited with helping to expand the range of stories and cultural perspectives represented in major animated features. The technical achievements of the film have also been recognized by industry professionals and critics, particularly the seamless integration of cultural authenticity with cutting-edge animation techniques. The film demonstrates how modern animation technology can be used to tell stories that are both visually spectacular and culturally respectful, setting new standards for representation in the media. The film's release during the global pandemic added additional layers of meaning to its themes about isolation, cooperation, and the importance of working together to overcome shared challenges. Many viewers found the story's message about the power of unity particularly relevant to their own experiences of navigating a global crisis that required collection and mutual support. The educational potential of the film has been recognized by teachers and cultural educators who have used it as a starting point for discussions about Southeast Asian history, culture, and geography. The rich world building and cultural details provide numerous opportunities for deeper exploration of the real-world traditions and practices that inspired the fictional world of Kumandra. The merchandising and ancillary products associated with the film have been designed to extend the cultural education aspects of the story, with books, games, and other materials that provide additional information about Southeast Asian cultures and traditions. This approach reflects Disney's recognition that the film's value extends beyond entertainment to include educational and cultural components. The legacy of Raya and the Last Dragon within Disney's catalog of animated features seems likely to be significant, representing a milestone in the studio's ongoing efforts to tell more diverse stories and to represent a broader range of cultural perspectives. The film's success has likely influenced future projects and demonstrated the commercial viability of stories that center non-Western cultural traditions. The film's impact on young viewers, particularly those of Southeast Asian heritage who have had limited representation in major animated features, has been noted by parents, educators, and cultural advocates. The importance of seeing oneself reflected in mainstream entertainment cannot be overstated, and Raya provides a strong, complex protagonist that young viewers can admire and emulate. Looking at the film's place within the broader context of Disney animation, Raya and the Last Dragon represents a continuation of the studio's recent efforts to expand beyond European fairy tale traditions and to explore stories from other cultural contexts. Following films like Moana, Coco, and Encanto, Raya demonstrates Disney's commitment to telling stories that reflect the diversity of human experience while maintaining the high production values and emotional resonance that define the brand. The film's approach to world-building, creating a fantasy realm that draws from real-world cultures without directly adapting existing stories or legends, provides a model for how animation studios can create original content that is both respectful of cultural traditions and suitable for global audiences. This balance between authenticity and creativity represents a sophisticated approach to cultural representation. The technical innovations developed for Raya and the Last Dragon, particularly in the areas of character animation, environmental design, and cultural authenticity, have likely influenced subsequent projects both within Disney and across the animation industry. The film demonstrates how new technologies can be used to serve storytelling goals while also respecting the cultural context that inspire fictional worlds. The collaborative approach taken during the film's development, involving cultural consultants throughout the creative process rather than simply at the end for approval, provides a model for how entertainment companies can engage more meaningfully with the communities whose traditions inspire their work. This approach helps ensure that cultural representation is authentic and respectful, rather than superficial or appropriate. The film's exploration of complex themes related to trust, forgiveness, and reconciliation provides valuable content for family discussions and educational applications. The story's emphasis on the difficulty but necessity of choosing cooperation over conflict offers lessons that are relevant to viewers of all ages and applicable to various real-world situations. In conclusion, Raya and the Last Dragon stands as a significant achievement in animated filmmaking that successfully combines spectacular visuals, compelling characters, and meaningful themes with respectful cultural representation. The film's story of a young woman learning to trust others and work cooperatively to heal a divided world resonates across cultural boundaries, while also celebrating the specific traditions and perspectives of South. The technical excellence of the animation, from the fluid martial arts sequences to the detailed environmental design, demonstrates the continued evolution of the medium and its capacity to tell increasingly sophisticated and culturally diverse stories. The voice acting brings depth and authenticity to characters who feel like real individuals rather than animated archetypes, while the musical score provides emotional support that enhances both intimate character moments. The film's themes about the power of unity, the importance of trust, and the possibility of redemption and reconciliation speak to fundamental human experiences, while also addressing contemporary concerns about division and cooperation in increasingly complex societies. The message that people are stronger when they work together, despite the risks that cooperation entails, provides hope and guidance for viewers navigating their own. The cultural representation in the film, while not perfect, represents a significant step forward in terms of authenticity and respect for the traditions that inspire fictional worlds. The collaboration with cultural consultants and the commitment to avoiding stereotypes, while celebrating the richness of Southeast Asian cultures, creates a model for how entertainment companies can engage more meaningfully with diverse communities. The character development throughout the film, particularly Raya's journey from suspicion to trust and Namaari's transformation from antagonist to ally, provides compelling examples of how people can grow and change when faced with challenges that require them to reconsider their assumptions and approaches. These character arcs offer valuable lessons about leadership, forgiveness, and the courage required to make oneself vulnerable in service of life. The visual spectacle of the film, from the diverse landscapes of Kumandra to the magical sequences involving dragons and the dragon gem, creates a sense of wonder and adventure that appeals to viewers of all ages while also serving the story's themes and character development. The integration of action, humor, and emotional depth creates a viewing experience that is both entertaining and meaningful. Raya and the Last Dragon ultimately succeeds as both a spectacular piece of entertainment and a thoughtful exploration of themes that are relevant to contemporary audiences around the world. The film's combination of cultural specificity and universal themes creates a story that celebrates diversity, while also emphasizing the common humanity that connects people across different backgrounds and traditions. The legacy of the film within Disney's catalog, and within the broader landscape of animated entertainment, seems likely to be significant and lasting. The technical innovations, cultural representation, and thematic depth of Raya and the Last Dragon establish new standards for what animated features can achieve, while also demonstrating the continued relevance and power of animation as a medium for storytelling that matters. For audiences seeking entertainment that combines visual spectacle with meaningful themes, compelling characters with cultural authenticity, and exciting action with emotional depth, Raya and the Last Dragon delivers on all fronts. The film stands as a testament to the power of animation to tell stories that are both specific to particular cultural contexts and universal in their appeal and relevance. The journey of Raya, from a trusting young princess to a suspicious survivor to a mature leader who chooses trust despite its risks, provides a character arc that resonates with viewers who have faced their own challenges with disappointment, betrayal, and the difficult choice to remain open to others despite past hurt. Her story offers hope that growth and healing are possible even after profound loss and trauma. The world of Kumandra, with its rich cultural details and diverse environments, provides a setting that is both fantastical and grounded in real-world traditions and geography. The careful attention to cultural authenticity, combined with the creative freedom of fantasy world building, creates a fictional realm that feels both exotic and familiar, allowing viewers to explore different cultural perspectives while following a compelling adventure story. Raya and the Last Dragon stands as a worthy addition to Disney's legacy of animated features that combine entertainment with meaning, technical excellence with cultural respect, and spectacular visuals with compelling characters and themes. The film demonstrates the continued evolution and relevance of animation as a medium for telling stories that matter to diverse audiences around the world. The production journey of Raya and the Last Dragon began years before audiences would witness the final product, with Disney Animation Studios embarking on an ambitious quest to create something entirely new within their catalog of animated features. The initial concept emerged from a desire to explore Southeast Asian cultures through the lens of fantasy adventure, but the path from concept to completion would prove as challenging and rewarding as Raya's own journey across the fractured lands of Kumandra. Early in development, the creative team faced the fundamental challenge of how to respectfully represent cultures that had rarely been featured in major animated production. This responsibility weighed heavily on everyone involved, from the directors to the animators to the voice actors. The decision to form the Southeast Asian story trust represented a crucial commitment to authenticity that would influence every aspect of the film's creation. The research phase for the project took the creative team across multiple countries in Southeast Asia, where they immersed themselves in local cultures, studied architectural styles, observed traditional crafts, and listened to stories passed down through generations. This wasn't merely academic research, but a genuine effort to understand the heart and soul of the cultures they were drawing inspiration from. The team visited ancient temples in Cambodia, explored floating markets in Thailand, studied martial arts traditions in Indonesia, and absorbed the rich tapestry of traditions that would eventually inform the world of Kumandra. The challenge of creating a fantasy world that honored real cultures without appropriating them required constant dialogue between the creative team and cultural consultants. Every design decision, from the shape of buildings to the patterns on clothing, was carefully considered for its cultural implications and accuracy. This collaborative approach extended the development timeline, but ensured that the final product would be something that Southeast Asian communities could embrace with pride rather than concern. The evolution of Raya's character design went through numerous iterations, as the team worked to create a protagonist who would feel authentic to Southeast Asian audiences while also appealing to global viewers. Early concept art explored various approaches to her appearance, clothing, and overall aesthetic, with each version refined based on feedback from cultural consultants and story needs. The final design successfully balances cultural authenticity with the distinctive Disney animation style, creating a character who feels both familiar and groundbreaking. The development of Kumandra as a fictional world required the creation of entirely new languages, writing systems, and cultural practices that would feel authentic while serving the story's needs. The linguistic consultants worked to develop dialogue and terminology that drew from real Southeast Asian languages, while creating something new that wouldn't favor one specific culture over others. This careful balance extended to visual elements like signage, artwork, and architectural details that populate the background of scenes. The animation techniques required for Raya and the Last Dragon pushed Disney's technical capabilities in several important areas. The rendering of water, which plays such a crucial role in the story's themes and visual design, required new approaches to make it feel both magical and realistic. The team developed new methods for depicting flowing water, from the gentle springs where Sisu first appears to the dramatic sequences where water drains away from the entire land. The martial arts sequences presented another significant technical challenge, requiring animators to study real fighting techniques and translate them into animated form without losing their authenticity or impact. The fluid, acrobatic movements of Southeast Asian martial arts traditions demanded new approaches to character animation that could capture both the grace and power of these fighting styles. Each fight scene was carefully choreographed with input from martial arts experts to ensure accuracy and effectiveness. The character of Sisu required perhaps the most innovative animation work in the entire film, as the team needed to create a dragon that could seamlessly transform between her magical dragon form and her human disguise. The technical challenges of this transformation went beyond simple shape, changing to include maintaining character consistency across both forms, while also making each form feel natural and believable within the story's context. The voice recording process for Raya and The Last Dragon involved unprecedented collaboration between the voice actors and cultural consultants to ensure that performances felt authentic and respectful. Kiel Murray Tran worked closely with dialect coaches and cultural advisors to develop Raya's voice, ensuring that her delivery reflected the character's cultural background while also serving the emotional needs of the story. This collaborative approach extended to all the voice actors, creating performances that feel grounded in authentic cultural understanding. The musical composition process involved extensive research into Southeast Asian musical traditions, with composer James Newton Howard working alongside ethnomusicologists and traditional musicians to create a score that honored these traditions while also serving the epic scope of the story. Traditional instruments were integrated into the orchestral arrangements, creating a unique sound palette that hadn't been heard in previous Disney animated features. The film's approach to depicting family relationships reflects deep understanding of Southeast Asian cultural values, where family bonds extend beyond immediate relatives to include chosen family and community connections. The way Raya's makeshift group becomes a family unit mirrors traditional concepts of community and mutual support that are central to many Southeast Asian cultures. This theme resonates throughout the story, from Raya's relationship with her father to her eventual acceptance of her traveling companions as true family. The political themes embedded within the story reflect sophisticated understanding of how conflicts arise and perpetuate themselves across generations. The division of Kumandra into competing tribes mirrors real-world situations, where artificial boundaries and historical grievance. The film's resolution suggests that healing these divisions requires not just good intentions, but genuine sacrifice and the courage to be vulnerable with former enemies. The environmental themes woven throughout Raya and The Last Dragon speak to contemporary concerns about climate change and resource management, while also drawing from traditional Southeast Asian concepts about the relationship between humans and the natural world. The role of water as both a life-giving force and a barrier against evil reflects traditional beliefs about the spiritual significance of natural elements, while the draining of water serves as a powerful metaphor for environmental destruction. The film's exploration of trauma and healing operates on both personal and societal levels, showing how individual experiences of betrayal and loss can shape entire communities' approaches. Raya's journey from trauma to healing mirrors the larger journey that Kumandra must take as a society, suggesting that personal growth and social change are interconnected processes that require both individual courage and collective commitment. The visual storytelling techniques employed throughout the film demonstrating of how color, composition, and movement can convey emotional and thematic information without relying solely on dialogue. The contrast between the vibrant colors of unified Kumandra and the gray desolation of the Druun, infected wasteland, provides a visual representation of the story's central conflict that operates on a subconscious level for viewers. The character development arcs for each member of Raya's group reflect different aspects of the healing process that individuals and communities must undergo after experiencing trauma and division. Baun represents resilience and the ability to maintain hope despite difficult circumstances. Noi and the Ongjis represent the importance of chosen family and unconditional love. Tong represents the challenge of moving forward after profound loss. Together, they create a comprehensive picture of what recovery and growth look like in practice. The film's approach to depicting different forms of leadership through characters like Chief Benja, Chief Virana, and eventually Raya herself, explores how different leadership styles emerge from different experiences and worldviews. Benja's idealistic approach reflects his memory of better times and his hope for the future. Virana's militaristic approach reflects her focus on protecting her people in a dangerous world. Raya's eventual synthesis of these approaches suggests that effective leadership requires both vision and pragmatism. The cultural authenticity of the film extends to small details that might be easily overlooked but contribute significantly to the overall sense of place and character. The way characters prepare and share food, the patterns of social interaction during gatherings, the respect shown for elders and traditions, and the integration of spiritual beliefs into daily life all reflect careful attention to cultural accuracy that enhances the story's credibility and emotional impact. The technical achievement of creating 5 distinct tribal regions that each feel authentic and lived in required unprecedented attention. Each region needed its own architectural style, landscape characteristics, clothing traditions, and cultural practices that would feel consistent and believable, while also serving the story's dramatic needs. The success of this world building creates a sense of depth and history that makes Kumandra feel like a real place, with centuries of accumulated culture and tradition. The film's handling of language and communication reflects understanding of how different communities develop their own ways of speaking and interacting, while still maintaining the ability to understand each other when necessary. The subtle variations in speech patterns, vocabulary, and social customs between the different tribes create authenticity without creating barriers to audience comprehension. The integration of humor throughout the film serves multiple purposes beyond simple entertainment, helping to balance the serious themes while also reflecting the resilience and adaptability that characterize many Southeast Asian cultural traditions. The humor emerges naturally from character interactions and situations, rather than being imposed artificially, creating moments of genuine joy and connection that make the characters feel more human. And the film's approach to depicting spirituality and belief systems draws from Southeast Asian traditions, while avoiding specific religious references that might exclude or offend viewers from different backgrounds. The reverence for dragons, the significance of water, and the importance of ancestral wisdom all reflect spiritual themes that are culturally authentic while remaining accessible to global audiences. The action sequences throughout the film demonstrate how spectacular visuals can serve character development rather than simply providing entertainment. Each fight scene reveals something important about the characters involved. Whether it's Raya's growth as a warrior, the martial traditions of different tribes, or the way cooperation can overcome individual limitations. This integration of action and character development creates more engaging and meaningful sequence fans in perspective. The film's treatment of redemption and forgiveness explores the complexity of these processes without oversimplifying them or suggesting that forgiveness is always easy or immediate. Namari's journey from antagonist to ally requires genuine change and sacrifice, not just good intentions or apologies. This nuanced approach to redemption reflects mature understanding of how trust can be rebuilt after it has been broken. The visual effects work in Raya and The Last Dragon push the boundaries of what was possible in animated filmmaking, particularly in sequences involving magic, transformation, and large-scale environmental changes. The technical team developed new tools and techniques specifically for this film, many of which have since been adopted for other productions. The seamless integration of these effects with traditional character animation creates a unified visual style that serves the story rather than overwhelming it. The film's exploration of different approaches to survival and adaptation shows how various communities might respond differently to the same challenges based on their resources, traditions, and leadership. The contrast between Fang's militaristic approach and Talon's commercial adaptability, or between Spine's fortress mentality and Tail's entrepreneurial spirit, reflects real-world diversity in how societies organize themselves and respond to threats. The sound design and audio engineering for the film created an immersive environment that supports both the intimate character moments and the spectacular action sequences. The careful layering of ambient sounds, the integration of traditional instruments with orchestral elements, and the precise timing of audio cues with visual elements all contribute to creating a believable and engaging world that draws viewers into the story. The film's approach to depicting childhood and coming of age reflects understanding of how young people navigate the transition from innocence to experience while maintaining their core values and identity. Raya's journey from idealistic youth to hardened survivor to mature leader shows how growth often requires us to temporarily abandon our ideals before finding ways to integrate them with practical wisdom. The merchandising and marketing strategy for Raya and The Last Dragon reflected Disney's recognition that this film represented something new and significant in their catalog. The promotional materials emphasized the cultural authenticity and the groundbreaking nature of the representation while also highlighting the universal themes and spectacular animation that would appeal to all audiences. This balance between cultural specificity and universal appeal became a model for marketing culturally diverse content. The educational partnerships and cultural initiatives associated with the film's release demonstrated Disney's commitment to using their platform. Collaborations with cultural organizations, educational institutions, and community groups helped extend the film's impact beyond the theater experience, creating opportunities for deeper cultural understanding and appreciation. The film's release strategy, which included both theatrical and streaming availability due to pandemic circumstances, created an interesting case study in how culturally significant content can reach diverse audiences through multiple platforms. The accessibility provided by streaming helped ensure that communities who might not have easy access to theaters could still experience this representation, while the theatrical experience provided the full impact of the spectacular visuals and sound design. The critical reception of Raya and The Last Dragon reflected both appreciation for its technical achievements, as well as ongoing discussions about the challenges involved in cross-cultural storytelling. The generally positive response from Southeast Asian communities, while not universal, suggested that the collaborative approach to development had succeeded in creating something that felt respectful and authentic to many viewers from the cultures being represented. The film's influence on subsequent animated projects can already be seen in the increased attention to cultural authenticity and the more collaborative approaches to development that other studios have adopted. The success of Raya and The Last Dragon demonstrated that audiences are hungry for diverse stories and that the investment in authentic representation pays off both culturally and commercially. The technical innovations developed for the film continue to influence animation production across the industry, particularly in areas like character rigging for complex transformations, environmental animation for large-scale changes, and the integration of cultural authenticity with fantasy. These advances help push the entire medium forward while also serving the specific needs of culturally diverse storytelling. The lasting impact of Raya and The Last Dragon extends beyond its immediate success to include its role in expanding the possibilities for animated storytelling and cultural representation in mainstream entertainment. The film stands as proof that audiences are ready for stories that challenge them culturally and emotionally, while still providing the spectacular entertainment they expect from major animated features. The character relationships in the film demonstrate sophisticated understanding of how trust develops gradually through shared experiences and mutual vulnerability, rather than through grand gestures or simple declarations. The bond between Raya and Sisu grows through their journey together, while the connections between all the group members develop organically as they face challenges and learn to rely on each other. The film's handling of conflict resolution shows how genuine peace requires more than just stopping the fighting, but must include addressing the underlying causes of division and building new systems that support cooperation rather than competition. The reunification of Kumandra at the film's end represents not a return to the past, but the creation of something new that incorporates lessons learned from both success and failure. Raya and the Last Dragon ultimately succeeds in creating a complete cinematic experience that honors its cultural inspirations while telling a story that resonates across cultural boundaries. The film demonstrates that authenticity and accessibility are not opposing goals, but complementary elements that strengthen each other when approached with care, respect, and genuine commitment to excellence in storytelling. Long before cameras began to capture the vibrant world of Kumandra, the creative minds behind the feature gathered in quiet conference rooms and virtual spaces to lay the foundation for a story that would honor Southeast Asian cultures while inviting global audiences into a realm of wonder. The initial brainstorming sessions were alive with curiosity and respect as storytellers, designers, and cultural experts exchanged memories of childhood. These intimate conversations became the heartbeat of the project, guiding every narrative decision and creative flourish that followed. The journey from concept to screen unfolded during a period when remote collaboration transformed the animation landscape. Artists, storyboarders, and voice performers recorded dialogue and refined visual sequences from home studios and improvised workstations. Digital pipelines were reconfigured so that lighting specialists in one region could adjust water simulations crafted by colleagues halfway around the globe. This decentralized process mirrored the film's own themes of scattered communities, striving toward unity, and it demonstrated how ingenuity and perseverance can flourish under challenging circumstances. Central to the authenticity of the film was the Southeast Asian story. Trust a collective of anthropologists, linguists, choreographers, and community elders who advised on everything from architectural motifs to the cadence of ceremonial chants. They shared personal anecdotes about river festivals, lantern ceremonies, and intricate textile weaving, all of which informed story beats and visual mood. The advisory team ensured that woven baskets in market scenes were tied with accurate knots, and that ceremonial greetings echoed genuine regional customs rather than generic gestures. Costume design evolved through layers of research and experimentation. Each tribal region expressed identity through fabric, weight, color palette, and embroidery techniques inspired by real-world traditions, yet stylized for fantasy. Heart garments carried earthy greens and stone grays reminiscent of ancient temple walls, weathered by monsoon rains. Tail residents favored flowing wraps dyed with desert bloom pigments, reflecting survival in arid climates. Talon traders wore bold hues that shimmered like fish scales under shifting market lanterns, evoking both commerce and celebration. Fang uniforms blended regal silk with structured armor plating symbolizing authority tempered by artistic refinement. Spine attire showcased thick fur linings and angular patterns that mimicked jagged peaks and wind-carved cliffs. Food scenes offered subtle storytelling opportunities by highlighting shared flavors across divided lands. Animators studied the sizzle of coconut oil, the gentle cloud of steamed rice, and the playful bounce of tapioca pearls to animate mouth-watering spreads. The open-air feast at Heart included sweet aromatic broths, similar to tom kha soups, while Talon's floating stalls displayed carved fruit arrangements that referenced Thai royal cuisine traditions. These culinary details underscored the idea that communal meals create common ground even among skeptical guests. The soundscape extended cultural authenticity beyond visuals. Foley artists captured the crisp snap of bamboo weapons, the soft crunch of sand beneath desert sandals, and the resonant gong that signaled dawn in spine camps. Traditional percussion instruments blended with sweeping orchestral strings to support action sequences where rhythmic drumming paralleled combat choreography derived from silat and arnis practices. During quiet character moments, flutes fashioned after suling instruments delivered airy melodies, suggesting hope carried on river breezes. Throughout production, the creative team drew parallels between dragon lore and water symbolism mythologies. In many local legends, dragons control rainfall and waterways, serving as guardians of agriculture and life. Translating that reverence into Sisu's characterization required delicate balance between playful humor and ancestral wisdom. Her flowing mane, animated with particle physics, conveyed buoyant energy, yet glowed faintly whenever she tapped into ancient memories. Voice casting embraced genuine representation by inviting performers of Asian heritage to shape characters through personal resonance. Kiel Murray approached Raya with the determination of someone who has navigated both external expectations and inner doubts. During recording sessions, she explored how subtle shifts in tone could reveal vulnerability in moments of private grief or ignite fierce resolve during confrontation. Gemma Chan infused Namari with layered intensity, demonstrating the strain of upholding a militaristic doctrine while yearning for a gentler path. Awkwafina embraced Sisu's wit and wide-eyed wonder, channeling comedic timing, honed on stage, yet grounding every joke in earnest empathy. Editors faced the challenge of maintaining narrative momentum while honoring contemplative passages essential to thematic depth. Montage sequences depicting Raya's cross-country quest combined sweeping aerial vistas with intimate close-ups of handwritten notes and weathered maps. These transitions allowed audiences to witness both the grandeur of Kumandra's varied landscapes and the quiet persistence driving Raya forward. Careful pacing ensured that emotional beats landed with impact without sacrificing the exhilaration of high-stakes chases and sword clashes. Marketing campaigns celebrated the film's cultural roots through partnerships with artisans who produced handmade merchandise inspired by traditional crafts. Limited edition scarves featured batik patterns that matched Raya's cloak lining. Toy sets included miniature mortar and pestle accessories, encouraging children to recreate pepper sauce scenes from Bound's floating kitchen. Book tians offered language primers introducing readers to greetings derived from multiple Southeast Asian tongues, furthering educational outreach. Critical discourse around the release highlighted the film's exploration of intergenerational trauma. Scholars noted how the fracturing of Kumandra echoed historical divisions created by colonial borders and resource competition. Characters confronted personal responsibility for past choices, illustrating that reconciliation requires active participation rather than passive regret. Environmental themes resonated with activists who drew comparisons between the Druun plague and real-world ecological crises. The draining of water following Sisu's demise served as an allegory for watersheds devastated by restoring waterways through collective action. The film suggested that solutions to environmental threats hinge upon trust and coordinated stewardship, rather than isolationist policies. The animation team's commitment to diversity extended behind the camera through mentorship, initiatives that paired seasoned employees with emerging artists from underrepresented backgrounds. These apprentices contributed to crowd scenes, populating talents markets, worrying regionally specific. Their inclusion enriched the cinematic tapestry while nurturing future voices in animation. In retrospective interviews, directors reflected on script revisions guided by authenticity. Early drafts portrayed the Druun as mindless predators, but consultants encouraged a depiction of the entities as manifestations of human discord. The adjusted portrayal positioned the antagonist as an ideological force that could be quelled only through solidarity. Academic panels have since examined the film's linguistic creativity. The constructed phrases spoken during dragon rituals blend phonetic elements from Khmer, Chavanese, Tagalog, and Lao, forming chants that sound familiar yet remain fantastic. Linguists praised this hybrid approach for honoring multiple languages without privileging one dialect, while still ensuring clarity for international audiences. Educators integrated the film into curricula focusing on conflict resolution. Classroom discussions analyzed how Raya's initial skepticism stemmed from lived experience of betrayal and how gradual shifts in perspective arose through empathy. Role-play activities allowed students to practice mediation skills, mirroring the climactic scene where characters choose vulnerability over self-preservation. Fans celebrated smaller narrative details, such as Tuk's loyal companionship, symbolizing the importance of steadfast allies. Artists online recreated scenes of the armadillo pillbug hybrid curling around a sleeping Raya during desert nights. Culinary enthusiasts recreated bound shrimp congee, sharing recipes across social media that fused regional ingredients with modern twists, reflecting cultural hybridity. The film's legacy continues to influence interactive media. Game developers have experimented with cooperative mechanics inspired by the gem restoration sequence, where success depends on synchronized trust moves. Players must relinquish individual power-ups to teammates, mirroring the climactic selfless exchange that revives the land. These design choices encourage collaboration over competition, echoing the story's core message. Soundtrack concerts have toured international venues featuring orchestras. Audiences experience immersive renditions of the score, while dragon-shaped lanterns cast aquatic patterns across theater ceilings. These events invite attendees to celebrate cultural fusion through multisensory storytelling. Cultural festivals now include Raya-themed parades, where dancers wear stylized dragon tails and perform choreography influenced by both classical dance and martial forms. Floats depict each tribal region with dynamic water fountains. Spectators witness visual storytelling that reinforces collective identity beyond geographic boundaries. Scholars exploring feminist narratives have praised the film for centering agency without framing strength solely through physical prowess. Raya's emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, and capacity for forgiveness demonstrate multidimensional leadership. Namari's arc illustrates how dismantling oppressive systems can originate from insiders challenging inherited dogma. Collectors cherish concept art books revealing early sketches of dragons with feathered wings and marginal notes disclose debates about scale placement, coloration, and silhouette readability, showing how even minute adjustments contribute to character clarity and cultural symbolism. These behind-the-scenes glimpses provide insight into iterative creative processes. Animation students study lighting breakdowns to understand how subtle rim glows accentuate magical moments, while muted palettes convey despair. Tutorials dissect node graphs that control shimmer effects on the gem fragments, observing how color saturation increases with each act of trust. Such technical dissections bridge art and science, demonstrating that emotion on screen emerges from meticulous programming and aesthetic insight. Community screenings frequently host dialogue circles where viewers share personal stories of reconciliation, mirroring on-screen events. Participants recount times when vulnerable conversations heal friendships or Facilitators connect these experiences to the narrative arc, reinforcing the transformative power of storytelling. Philanthropic initiatives associated with the film have funded scholarship programs for aspiring artists from Southeast Asian regions. Recipients attend workshops led by industry professionals who contributed to the feature. These programs cultivate future storytellers, ensuring that authentic voices continue shaping global narrative. The soundtrack's signature theme weaves gentle bamboo percussion with soaring string harmonies, symbolizing harmony between tradition and innovation. Musicologists note how melodic intervals echo lullabies passed through generations, while orchestral swells embody cinematic grandeur. This fusion underscores the film's belief that progress flourishes when heritage and modernity collaborate. Academic journals within cultural studies circles cite the film when discussing diasporic identity formation. Essays examine how second-generation viewers interpret Raya's search for communal belonging in relation to their own experiences navigating multiple cultural contexts. These analyses highlight the film's ability to provide mirrors and windows, fostering self-reflection and cross-cultural empathy. The ending sequence, where dragons and humans celebrate together, has inspired mural projects in urban spaces worldwide. Artists paint swirling water dragons intertwined with diverse human figures, planting seeds, restoring forests, and dancing under lantern-strewn skies. These public artworks promote collective responsibility for environmental stewardship and social cohesion. Literary critics discuss the film's narrative structure as a modern quest epic that subverts conventional hero tropes. Rather than triumphing through dominance, the protagonist succeeds by relinquishing control, embodying a paradigm shift from conquest toward cooperation. This inversion adds complexity to familiar cinematic language, inviting audiences to rethink what constitutes strength and victory. The meditation on forgiveness resonates with mental health advocates who appreciate its nuanced portrayal of coping with betrayal. The narrative validates emotional scars while illustrating paths toward restored connection. Cultural commentators draw parallels between the film's depiction of communal gem fragments and contemporary debates over shared resources. The story demonstrates that hoarding protective power breeds insecurity, whereas pooling assets creates resilience. This allegory sparks dialogue about equitable distribution of vaccines. Animation historians situate the film within a lineage of Disney projects that progressively expand cultural representation. They compare the meticulous research methods applied here to earlier milestones, observing a trend toward deeper community collaboration. This evolution marks a broader industry commitment to inclusive storytelling that transcends tokenistic gestures. Within costume design circles the intricate layering of outfit. Panels discuss how the segmented cape doubles as blanket harness and shelter, referencing nomadic ingenuity. Workshops replicate fabric folding techniques that allow swift transformation between stealth mode and ceremonial presence. The film's gentle approach to humor eschews punchlines that rely on belittlement, opting instead for situational comedy and character-driven wit. Sisu's playful asides stem from genuine curiosity rather than sarcasm, fostering levity without undercutting emotional stakes. This style contributes to an atmosphere of warmth and sincerity. Cinematographers analyze the strategic use of framing to convey shifting alliances. Early encounters between Raya and Namari place them at opposing screen edges separated by negative space. As trust rebuilds, compositions bring them closer within the frame, culminating in mirrored stances that signify restored balance. The dragon gem's glow evolves alongside narrative tension. Subtle saturation increases with every integrative act, signaling narrative progression through color language. This visual cue communicates emotional shifts to viewers, subconsciously enriching engagement without overt exposition. Scholars of mythology note parallels between Sisu and serpent deities honored in Mekong River folklore. Yet the adaptation introduces gentle pastel hues and playful facial expressions, emphasizing compassion over ferocity. This reinterpretation supports themes of benevolent guardianship and collaborative strength. The success of the film encourages studios to allocate greater resources to stories rooted in underrepresented cultures. Producers acknowledge that authenticity attracts broad audiences who appreciate fresh perspectives and nuanced world building. This recognition shifts industry benchmarks for what defines mainstream appeal. Libraries curate reading lists, featuring folktale collections from Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Indonesia, alongside graphic novel adaptations of the film. These resources invite readers to explore mythic traditions that inspired the cinematic. Social scientists conduct surveys revealing that viewers who watched the film reported heightened interest in learning about Southeast Asian history and languages. This measurable curiosity indicates the profound educational influence that entertainment media can exert. Musicians on video platforms arrange covers of the end credits song using traditional instruments such as the quena and colente. These renditions celebrate cultural heritage while demonstrating creative reinterpretation, bridging ancestral sounds with contemporary sensibilities. In the realm of fine art, sculptors craft ceramic dragons, glazed in turquoise and lavender, capturing Sisu's ethereal elegance. Exhibitions juxtapose these sculptures with wood carvings of guardian statues, evoking the stone remnants of dragons. Dialogue continues among activists who view the film as an invitation to dismantle barriers between communities. Workshops analyze how fear-driven rhetoric parallels the Fang tribe's defensive posture, urging participants to cultivate cross-cultural alliances. The story serves as both cautionary tale and blueprint for collective healing. Through ongoing academic research, fan creativity, and community engagement, Raya and the Its layered narrative artistry and heartfelt advocacy for trust ensure that discussions inspired by the film will continue to ripple across cultural landscapes for many seasons to come. During post-release conferences, the creative team reflected on narrative choices that challenged conventional storytelling expectations within animated features. Instead of presenting a singular, monolithic villain, the film explores how collective anxieties manifest as a... Scholars have praised this approach for encouraging audiences to examine internal biases rather than projecting blame onto an external monster. The visual embodiment of fear as swirling shadow allowed young viewers to grasp complex ideas about social estrangement without confronting intimidating humanoid antagonists. The color palette evolves in deliberate stages to mirror shifting emotional landscapes. Early sequences employ sunlit gold. After the gemstone shatters, hues transition toward muted umber and charcoal, indicating loss and uncertainty. As trust slowly repairs itself, splashes of aquamarine and coral return, signaling renewal and optimism. Animation students study palette charts from these scenes to understand how chromatic progression can underscore thematic arcs. Without explicit dialogue, Raya's subtle pause before offering food to a weary traveler reveals practiced caution rendered unnecessary by emerging goodwill. Sisu's habit of flicking water droplets from her mane during moments of excitement signals playfulness, contrasting Raya's controlled composure. These micro-animations, though brief, require extensive keyframe planning to ensure that nuance reads clearly, even within swift sequences. Cultural curators commend the depiction of market bargaining rituals in Talonport. The scene captures the melodic cadence of merchant chatter, rhythmic clapping to finalize deals, and respectful hand placement over the heart when expressing gratitude. Such details demonstrate rigorous observation of real-world trading hubs across Southeast Asia, where negotiation and hospitality intertwine. Interviews with stunt choreographers reveal that every skirmish pays homage to a distinct regional discipline. Blade exchanges in desert ruins incorporate flowing arm movements found in Filipino swordplay. Mountain fortress confrontations echo the rooted stances of Thai krabi krabang. Riverbank grapples showcase Indonesian joint locks that rely on opponents' momentum. Viewers familiar with these arts recognize signature flourishes, adding another layer of representation. Sound engineers layered natural field recordings with synthesized harmonics to create the presence of dragon magic. They captured the rush of wind through limestone caves, the low hum of bamboo forests at dusk, and the gentle drip of rainfall upon lotus leaf. These elements, processed through spectral filters, form an ethereal resonance that accompanies each activation of the gemstone. The technique blurs distinction between earthly sounds and mystical vibrations, reinforcing themes of harmony between humanity and environment. Literary critics draw parallels between the gemstone fragments and archetypal grail quests. Yet this narrative subverts tradition by depicting the relic as a shared inheritance rather than an individual prize. Success arises not from solitary heroism, but from the willingness to surrender ownership for communal benefit. This reinterpretation challenges mythic patterns that privilege conquest, promoting a cooperative ethic closer to Southeast Asian communal values. Educators utilizing the film in social studies lessons encourage learners to map fictional territories onto real archipelagos and river deltas, fostering geographic literacy while emphasizing cultural diversity within seemingly unified regions. Classroom activities include crafting water puppets inspired by Vietnamese traditions, paralleling Sisu's aquatic nature, and symbolizing storytelling as a bridge across linguistic and cultural divides. Museum exhibitions highlight textile replicas of tribal attire, enabling visitors to examine brocade weaving and natural dye techniques. Interactive stations allow guests to press carved wooden stamps onto fabric scrap, recreating repeating motifs seen on Raya's sash. These hands-on experiences honor artisan knowledge passed through generations, underscoring the film's commitment to cultural preservation. Mental health professionals note that the storyline validates emotional boundaries by illustrating Raya's guarded posture as a natural response to betrayal rather than a flaw. Her eventual openness demonstrates growth through trauma integration rather than simple forgetfulness of past wounds. This portrayal aligns with therapeutic principles that encourage gradual rebuilding of trust rather than immediate reconciliation. Within environmental science circles, researcher reference that dragons are depicted as ecological stabilizers whose absence triggers cascading collapse. This allegory aids students in conceptualizing the significance of biodiversity and illustrates how removing pivotal organisms can destabilize entire ecosystems. Philosophers examining virtue ethics cite the film as an exploration of trust as a foundational moral good. Characters practice what ethicists term reciprocal vulnerability, where each act of faith invites another, creating compounded ethical value. The gemstone reassembly sequence becomes a visual metaphor for moral capital accumulated through iterative altruism. Contemporary artists continue to reinterpret Sisu's fluid form, using mediums like augmented reality. Viewers wearing digital glasses witness iridescent scales drifting across physical walls, symbolizing the porous border between mythology and lived experience. Such installations extend the movie's motifs into public spaces, inviting everyday reflection on unity and wonder. Culinary anthropologists celebrate the accurate portrayal of jackfruit, pandan, and lemongrass in Heart Tribe kitchens. These ingredients are not exotic props, but integrated components of narrative authenticity. The simmering of coconut milk in wide clay pots anchors scenes of domestic life, illustrating how shared meals cultivate resilience against external chaos. Comparative media studies scholars place the film alongside earlier Disney titles to trace evolving depictions of female agency. Where earlier heroines often required external rescue, Raya exercises strategic leadership, martial capability, and emotional discernment without relinquishing vulnerability. This balance signals a broader shift in storytelling that measures strength through adaptability and empathy, not invulnerability. Facilitators analyze the climactic moment when Raya chooses to yield her gemstone shard first, demonstrating power found in concession. Participants role-play similar scenarios, practicing dialogue techniques that transform adversaries into collaborators. Craft guilds across Southeast Asia have reported increased youth enrollment since the film's debut. Apprentices cite inspiration from screen depictions of carving, weaving, and boatwork. Master artisans express gratitude that international visibility affirms the significance of their cultural heritage, motivating the next generation to sustain ancestral crafts. Within the field of computer graphics, technical papers dissect the hybrid rigging system designed for Sisu's serpentine anatomy. Engineers combine spline-based musculature with volumetric fur simulations. Conferences showcase this innovation as a benchmark for future character designs requiring seamless integration of flexible bodies and complex fur. Sociolinguists observe that children who watched localized dubs exhibit increased curiosity about source languages. Requests for bilingual storybooks and language learning apps surged, suggesting that authentic voice casting fosters genuine interest in linguistic diversity rather than passive consumption. In an inspiring real-world echo of the narrative, community organizers from coastal villages have initiated cooperative water management projects named after fictional dragons. These initiatives involve shared guardianship of mangrove nurseries, reinforcing the message that collective stewardship protects all from ecological harm. Museums curate traveling exhibits of production drawings to illustrate how visual development evolved. Visitors trace pencil lines that capture early versions of Kumandra architecture, noting how consultant annotations guided roof curvature to reflect vernacular forms common across the Mekong Basin. Such transparency encourages aspiring artists to embrace revision as integral to respectful representation. Film composers study James Newton Howard's score to understand layering of modal melodies above pen. Workshops deconstruct orchestration sheets, revealing how added gamelan textures impart regional authenticity while maintaining narrative drive. Students replicate these techniques to compose original pieces that honor diverse musical traditions. Dreaming of expanded exploration, fans propose spin-off tales set in once obscure corners of Kumandra. Community forums develop storylines featuring newly awakened dragons. These speculative narratives demonstrate the rich potential within the established universe for ongoing creativity. Corporate responsibility teams reference the film during team-building retreats, drawing lessons about interdisciplinary cooperation parallel to the coalition of Raya's companions. Activities challenge participants to pool resources in problem-solving exercises, mirroring the gemstone assembly process and reinforcing collaborative culture within the work. Gender studies researchers appreciate the narrative's nuanced portrayal of sisterhood beyond blood ties. Raya and Amari embody contrasting yet complementary archetypes of leadership, offering models for mutual growth through constructive tension. Their reconciliation suggests that solidarity among women thrives not through uniformity, but through honest confrontation and shared purpose. Spiritual leaders from various traditions note the film's alignment with teachings that advocate surrender of ego as a path to communal harmony. They employ the climax as a sermon illustration, comparing the relinquishment of gemstone pieces to the act of releasing personal grievances in pursuit of higher unity. University courses in animation ethics cite the film's development cycle as evidence of evolving standards in cross-cultural story. Case studies highlight how early engagement with community advisors not only prevents misrepresentation, but enriches narrative complexity, yielding stories that resonate universally while honoring specificity. Book clubs exploring speculative fiction discuss the film's inventive blend of folklore and original mythology. Members analyze how the narrative invites readers to imagine future societies where thermal imaging research teams even leveraged the film's visually rich water effects to develop more efficient algorithms for rendering fluid refraction. Such crossover illustrates how artistic ambition in entertainment can propel technological innovation with applications far beyond cinema. Through each of these continuing dialogues and creative outpourings, Raya and the Last Dragon endures as more than a singular motion picture. It functions as a living tapestry woven from countless voices, inviting ongoing participation in its vision of reconciliation, cultural celebration, and shared guardianship of a wondrous yet fragile world. Archival experts at major animation museums have begun cataloging every storyboard, panel, color script, and character maquette created during the lengthy development of the film. Researchers believe these materials will shape future curricula, offering tangible examples of how respectful representation can be woven into fantasy world building. Detailed notes from cultural consultants accompany each artifact, creating an invaluable record of collaborative artistry and ethical storytelling practice. Theme park Imagineers are already adapting Kumandra architecture for immersive attractions that will invite visitors to wander through floating market facades, sandstone courtyards, and luminous water gardens. Preliminary concept art depicts gentle dragon spirits projected onto mist curtains, while live performers demonstrate regional dance and martial art forms. Designers are prioritizing interactive storytelling that encourages guests to cooperate rather than compete, reflecting the narrative core of the source material. Technical directors continue to refine crowd simulation tools first tested on the bustling Talon marketplace. These upgraded systems allow animators to assign intricate behavioral patterns to individual digital citizens, ensuring that even background characters move with cultural-informed gestures. The software now supports a broader range of body types, attire variations, and subtle facial cues, expanding possibilities for authentic representation across future projects. Leadership trainers within nonprofit sectors employ the gemstone restoration sequence as a model for coalition building. Workshop participants analyze the moment each character relinquishes personal safety for communal salvation, then translate that. Facilitators report that visualizing sacrifice and reciprocity through cinematic metaphor helps teams navigate real-world conflicts with newfound empathy. Color theorists have published essays exploring the psychological impact of cyan, jade, and sunset coral within key scenes. They argue that the gentle shift from desaturated tones to radiant brightness functions as subconscious reassurance that reconciliation is achieved. Art therapy programs reference these findings when guiding clients through exercises that assign personal memories to color gradients, fostering emotional articulation. Cosplay communities celebrate the film by crafting layered garments with meticulous attention to fabric drape and embroidery accuracy. Artisans share tutorials on constructing folding straw hats and segmented swords use eco-friendly material. Convention organizers schedule cultural appreciation panels beside costume showcases, reinforcing respect for origin communities and discouraging superficial imitation. Diaspora educators note a surge in student pride as classrooms integrate Kumandra motifs into heritage weeks. Children create paper lanterns etched with river dragon silhouettes, while elders recount lullabies that inspire. These intergenerational exchanges spark renewed interest in native dialects and encourage younger learners to document family oral histories. Media analysts highlight how simultaneous theatrical and digital releases broadened access for remote audiences. Streaming platforms reported sustained viewership long after premiere week, suggesting that heartfelt word of mouth eclipsed. Global film festivals introduced special discussion tracks devoted to animated works that center underrepresented cultures. Panels featuring the creative leads examine the ethical responsibilities of adapting folklore without erasure. Attendees praised the film for setting a precedent that sophisticated fantasy can emerge from any cultural wellspring, not solely from dominant mythic traditions. Comic book writers and interactive narrative designers envision expanded journeys across newly awakened lands beyond the original map. Early story pitches include collaborative quests where dragon guardians mentor village scientists on sustainable irrigation or coastal restoration. Interactive prototypes allow players to negotiate resource-sharing accords, reinforcing lessons that cooperation yields prosperity for all regions. Ethnomusicologists remain fascinated by the blend of Kulantan gongs, buffalo horn flutes, and soaring string ensembles heard throughout the score. Graduate students transcribe these orchestral passages for community ensembles, thereby returning musical innovations to cultural roots while nurturing contemporary expression. Live performances often conclude with communal singing that echoes Sisu's hopeful refrain, uniting audiences in a shared chorus of renewal. Climate scientists reference the reflowering montage that follows the reactivation of dragon magic as an imaginative prompt for envisioning ecological recovery. Workshops pair the scene with presentations on mangrove reforestation and coral reef revival, inspiring activists to pursue tangible environmental solutions grounded in collective action rather than isolated effort. Philanthropic foundations sponsor mobile exhibitions that tour rural libraries, displaying tactile replicas of gemstone fragments crafted from recycled glass. Visitors assemble the pieces on illuminated tables. This traveling installation transforms passive viewing into participatory storytelling, reinforcing the message that every community member holds a vital shard of social harmony. Fashion historians compare the film's silhouette choices to classical garments of the Cham, Minangkabau, and Shan peoples. Scholarly articles propose that such adaptive design respects tradition by honoring functional origins rather than merely replicating aesthetic motifs. Sociologists investigating digital fandom observe that online forums cultivate intercultural friendships grounded in mutual admiration for the narrative's ethical stance. Users exchange culinary recipes, effectively decentralizing knowledge transmission. Moderators implement guidelines that foreground cultural sensitivity, demonstrating how entertainment properties can foster respectful global communities. Innovation labs within academic institutions analyze procedural water rendering techniques pioneered during production. Engineers adapt these algorithms for virtual hydrology simulations used in urban planning, disaster relief training. Philosophy departments include the film in syllabi exploring relational ethics. Students debate whether true trust requires first-mover vulnerability or mutual simultaneity, referencing the climactic surrender of gemstone shards as experiential evidence. These discussions extend to contemporary diplomacy, highlighting parallels between fantasy allegory and real negotiation. Librarians curate bilingual story circles where elders read picture book adaptations aloud, encouraging children to respond with original illustrations depicting imagined future dragons. This reciprocal exchange nurtures literacy, artistic confidence, and cultural continuity in a single activity, mirroring the film's emphasis on shared narrative stewardship. Documentaries covering the making of the film spotlight compositing artists who layered hand-painted cloud textures beneath volumetric lighting to evoke tropical humidity. Viewers learn how subtle environmental cues shape narrative mood, reinforcing the adage that every pixel carries emotional weight when guided by intentional artistry. Craft cooperatives in river delta regions collaborate with fair trade organizations to produce officially licensed bamboo puzzles shaped like Kumandra and wildlife. Portions of proceeds fund wetland preservation projects, creating a virtuous cycle where cultural celebration directly supports environmental guardianship, echoing the film's intertwined themes of nature and community. Performance studies scholars stage reinterpretations of key scenes as shadow puppetry, employing translucent dyes and intricate cutouts to emulate dragon magic on backlit screens. Audiences witness familiar moments through heritage performance art, reaffirming that timeless storytelling techniques remain potent vessels for contemporary tales. Literary journals publish speculative essays imagining correspondence between Chief Benja and historic advocates of peaceful federation, such as figures from maritime Southeast Asian polities. These creative letters explore philosophical alignments across fictional and historical context, demonstrating the educational value of intertwining imaginative narrative with scholarly inquiry. Participants visualize expansive skies over emerald valleys, while engaging in slow inhalations that mirror Sisu's graceful arcs, fostering relaxation and mental clarity rooted in evocative imagery. Academic presses release anthologies of essays that analyze the narrative through lenses such as ecofeminism, post-colonial identity, and restorative narrative theory. Contributors argue that the film's success lies in its refusal to offer simple binaries, instead presenting layered motivations that challenge audiences to embrace nuance within communal discourse. Storyboarding workshops encourage aspiring artists to create new scenes set during the peaceful reconstruction of Kumandra. Instructors emphasize the importance of environmental storytelling, tasking students with visualizing agricultural ceremonies, river cleanups, and intertribal festivals without dialogue. These exercises cultivate an understanding that vibrant world-building thrives on everyday moments, not solely grand conflicts. Maritime museums include scale models of Bound's floating restaurant, among exhibits dedicated to regional boat architecture. Curators note how the design bridges practicality and festivity, featuring ornamental lanterns alongside robust hull construction suited to shifting currents. Such displays elevate fictional craft into a catalyst for heritage preservation. Community art centers facilitate mural projects where local youth paint sprawling panoramas of unified villages encircling a crystal-clear lake restored by dragon magic. Mentors guide discussions on how visual symbols can advocate for inclusion and ecological responsibility, reflecting the multifaceted legacy of the cinematic narrative. By permeating scholarly discourse, public programming, technological development, and grassroots activism, the story continues to inspire dialogue and innovation well after the closing credits. Each new interpretation underscores the enduring truth at its heart, that trusting collaboration releases transformative power capable of healing lands, histories, and collective imagination.